Hello friends, and welcome to day 21 of our chronological Bible reading. Today we're in Genesis 27, 28, and 29. And if you've not seen these videos before, I'm Kenny Cargill. I'm a pastor in East Texas, and I do these videos in order to just share my own thoughts and hopefully encourage you to join in as we read the Bible through in a year. So today's passage, Genesis 27, 28, and 29, just really brings home how hard it is to do this. There is so much in here, and so we're not going to be able to hit every detail of what goes on in this story and all the possible lessons learned. But there are a couple things I want to highlight. The first is the story of Jacob, and first let's talk about what happens in this story. So we have first we have the story of Jacob stealing Esau's blessing, and with his mother's blessing on doing that. And then we've got Jacob. Esau, of course, gets angry about that, wants to kill Jacob, and so Jacob flees with his mom and dad's, both their blessings, with Rebekah and Isaac's blessings. He flees to get to Laban's house, where he meets Rachel, who is going to be his new wife. We see Jacob get married, and then Jacob have kids. Along the way, Jacob has this really awesome dream where he sees angels ascending and descending from heaven, and we'll talk about that too. Now, a couple things to point out here, sort of big picture things, is this: when you're reading the Bible, especially the Old Testament, the stories of the Old Testament in Genesis, it's really important that you understand that you are reading a grand story. What we see about God and learn about God isn't always found in the minutia, but in the bigger story and what's happening. We see that. We also see, as we say almost every week or every day, is that these are very real human people. We often make the mistake of thinking the heroes of the Bible were perfect people. But what we see as we look at this is these are people having real human reactions, acting like broken people who need a Savior, who are seeking after God. So one of the principles we'll see as we continue through Genesis is that for a person who has a Godward life, in other words, a person who is looking at God, moving in His direction, and who gives their life to the Lord will actually use your faults, your failures, your personality, your disposition, your position in life, all of those things, not only to fulfill His plans for the world, but also to bless you and grow you. We're going to see that a little bit in Esau, a touch of that in Esau today, and we're going to see some of that in Jacob as well. So let's take a look at the first part of this story. As today's reading opens, we've got Rebekah and Jacob talking, and they find out that Isaac is about to give Esau his blessing. Now, a little background, so you understand why this is important. There are two things in that day and time that dads gave their firstborn son that were really important to them. The first was the birthright. Now, your birthright is your right to be kind of the head of the household. As your dad ages, you sort of take over, and then also you get all the stuff. You get a double portion of the stuff when he dies. The second thing is the blessing. The blessing is where the father basically gives a prophecy over you and saying about your future, asking God to bless you and to fulfill you, to make you great, all those kinds of things. The kind of things you want to hear from your father. And those two things are incredibly important to the people of the day. Well, we already heard in a couple of days ago's reading that Esau despised his birthright. He literally gave up his right to run the household and receive a double portion of the stuff. He gave it up for a bowl of soup because he was hungry. Just that simple. He didn't care. He just didn't care. Who knows why, but it shows a character flaw in Esau that God over time is going to fix. We're going to see another character flaw and the beginning of God's fixing who Esau is. And that should encourage us because God needs to fix us. None of us are perfect, and it is over our lifespan as we seek after the Lord and move His direction that He makes changes in our lives and changes in who we are, changes in our personality, helps us to see our faults and overcome our faults and failures and become better people. And we see that in the lives of the patriarchs, the people recorded, whose stories are recorded in the book of Genesis. So as that part comes to an end, we won't go through all the details, it would take too long, but basically Jacob and his mother conspire while Esau's gone to trick Isaac, the father, into thinking that Jacob is Esau, because Isaac is now blind as an old man. And so they would want to trick Isaac into thinking that Jacob is Esau, so he will actually speak the blessing over Jacob, because that's what was important, is that whoever physically he spoke the blessing over is who got the blessing. So Esau heads off to get to do some hunting, to cook some food, to bring it back to his dad, so his dad will bless him. And in the meantime, Rebecca and Isaac put some food together, Rebecca and Jacob put some food together and dress Jacob up as Esau and send him into Isaac in order to receive the blessing, which works. Now, on the surface, this looks like a horrible thing to do, and it is tricky. It's like, man, these people, this is a really manipulative family. But remember, Esau despised the birthright. So already in this family, you've got Rebecca absolutely would have known that Esau didn't really respect his father. He didn't respect his father, didn't respect his household, didn't respect his stuff. And so in some senses you can see where Rebecca is kind of trying to protect the household from Esau. We also find out here in just a minute that Esau has married, or we found out in the previous chapter that Esau married a couple of the local women, the Hittite women. And again, in that day and time, that was a huge insult to the family. You didn't marry outside of your people. Now, we live in a different culture and a different time, so it'd be easy to cast judgment on that, but we're talking about just what they did in that time, not the right and wrong of it. And in the end, that was an insult to his father. So Esau had already insulted his father and the family on two major occasions. He didn't really deserve the blessing. Jacob, however, had been faithful to the family and did deserve the blessing. So I think that's why this is happening here. This may be something to talk about in the comments, because there's debate over this. But that's how I read this. Now, as we move forward, Esau, of course, comes in, and he's incredibly angry over the situation, and Esau lets it be known that his intention is that when his father Isaac dies, he's going to kill his brother Jacob. So Rebecca hears of this, and loving Jacob and wanting Jacob to live, she tells Jacob to flee to his uncle Laban. And also gets Isaac to bless Jacob as he goes, and tells him to go and go find a wife from among his own people. And now this is where the change in Esau begins. Now it's a slow change, and it's going to take a few chapters to get to all that happens and to see how God worked in Esau's life. But you see here in chapter 27, verse 6. It says, chapter 28, verse 6. In 28, verse 6, it says, "Now Esau learned that Isaac had blessed Jacob and had sent him to Padan Aram to take a wife from there. And that when he blessed him, he commanded him, 'Do not marry a Canaanite woman.'" So Canaanite was a broader term for the people of the area. The Hittites was the particular tribe that Esau married into. It said, and that Jacob had obeyed his father and mother and had gone to Padan Aram, which is where Laban is. In verse 8, Esau then realized how displeasing the Canaanite women were to his father Isaac. So he went to Ishmael, who was his uncle, and married Mahalath, the sister of Nebaioth, and daughter of Ishmael, son of Abraham, in addition to the wives he already had. So he already had two Hittite women as wives. Then he realizes, oh man, my dad, he's already lost his birthright. He's lost his blessing. And now he's trying to figure out, okay, the way I'm living life isn't working. And so he sees that Jacob has gotten the blessing as he goes out to get a wife from the clan. And he realizes, I'm messing up. He's starting to wake up to his own problems. And this is one of the life lessons for the day. We have to wake up and be honest about our own problems and our own faults before we can do anything about them. So here God is using this situation and all the imperfections of all the people around him to guide Esau to be a better person. In the same ways that he'll do that with us if we watch and listen, walk towards the Lord, and want to be better people. Now, as the story unfolds, there's the second fascinating thing I see here, or amazing thing I see here, is in chapter 28, verse 13. We see that Jacob is having a vision or a dream as he's headed to Padan Aram to go to Laban's house, and the Lord appears to him. It says, "I am the Lord, the God of your father Abraham and the God of Isaac. I will give you and your descendants the land on which you are laying. Your descendants will be like the dust of the earth, and you will spread out to the west and to the east and to the north and to the south. All peoples on earth will be blessed through you and your offspring. I am with you and will watch over you wherever you go, and I will bring you back to this land. I will not leave you until I have done what I have promised you." So God now is repeating the promise that he gave to Abraham in Genesis chapter 12 to now a third generation down. God keeps his promises. He's reminding Jacob of the promise that was given to Abraham, and then that was passed on to Isaac, so that Jacob will have faith that God too is with him through this whole process of his life. Now, as the story comes to an end, or the chapters come to an end, Jacob arrives, and he arrives in Padan Aram. He immediately meets Rachel, one of Laban's daughters, and they fall in love. Like it's one of these like magical moments. They see each other, and basically he's just overwhelmed by her. And yes, that does happen. Not for everybody, but it does happen for some. So he's overwhelmed by her. So he goes and to Laban. They go to the house, and he stays there for about a month. And then they start talking about Rachel. And Jacob says he wants to marry Rachel. And so Laban says, "You know what? If you work for me for 7 years, you can marry Rachel." He's like, great. He loves her enough. He's going to work. And the Bible literally says that he worked for the 7 years, and it seemed like no time at all. But then, these humans who keep messing with things and keep acting dishonestly and deceptively, Laban, at the end of the big party on the wedding day, Laban sends Leah, his other daughter, who the Bible alludes to isn't as attractive as Rachel. It's the older daughter. It sends the other daughter into the tent. I guess it was dark. Maybe they'd been drinking a lot. I don't know. But he sends it on the tent, and Jacob doesn't recognize the difference. He sleeps with Leah, wakes up in the morning, and there's Leah. And he's like, "What have you done to me?" And Laban simply says, "Hey, look, the tradition here is we don't marry off the younger one first, so I gave you Leah. But if you work for me for 7 more years, then you can have Rachel." And so they agreed to that. And being a man of his word, I think this is interesting. Jacob, being a man of his word, he took Rachel as his wife and then stayed 7 more years to work for Laban. So even though he already had Rachel as a wife and he had Leah as a wife, he went through with the promise. He didn't pack up and go saying, "Oh, you tricked me." And he gave his word, and he followed his word. And God blesses him for it, as we'll see in the future. Now, the whole section in chapter 29 ends with a demonstration of how God takes care of everyone in the story and their particular needs and desires. So here Leah is, this unloved wife, but as they're procreating, Leah gets pregnant 4 times, and Rachel has not gotten pregnant at all. Now, we know as the story unfolds, you'll see that the children of Rachel and Leah are both very important in the future and even up through today. But you see, Leah wasn't originally kind of part of the story, it seems. But Laban thrusts her into the story, and God takes care of her and blesses her with these children. And she recognizes that. And so as you read through these stories of the patriarchs and these people in the scripture, it blows me away every day when we're reading just how God takes care of us in spite of ourselves. He's taking care of and guiding and growing these people in spite of themselves. And that should encourage each of us. So as you come to the end of this passage, I hope you will join us for the next one. We'll do day 22, and we'll be in some more chapters in Genesis, and I look forward to seeing you back the next time. Make some comments. Let's have some discussion, if you would. Love you guys. We'll see you on the next one.